Hi there, welcome back to the channel and welcome to a new project. This one was rather unexpected. First of all, I wasn't expecting to do it, and secondly, I wasn't expecting the result. So this video is the entire procedure from start to finish of restoring this little Nordmende Transita Automatic. And the reason this radio came into play at all is because a family member got very jealous of the friend that I'd given the other radio to just before Christmas, and they wanted one too. So it became a little Me Too movement. There are actually more requests on the pipeline, but they'll have to wait for a while. When I bought this radio, I had two reasons to actually bid on it and buy it. One was the make, the brand, Nordmende. These Nordmende Transita models are very, very high quality. The second one was the condition it was in, the state it was in. It was dirty, yes. There were a few things that were pointed out as not being perfect, but basically the body, the leatherwork and everything else was said to be in perfect condition. And happily, yes, it is. And the reason I chose that as the main criteria is because as far as the radio is concerned, I wasn't afraid that I wouldn't get it to work. This might sound like arrogance, but it's not. It's just a question of having done it before. You can actually overcome just about any fault if you've got the components available, which I do have, and if you've done a few of these things, which I have done. So, the confidence was there, but the result was actually not what I expected. It worked out much, much easier than I thought. And it got me thinking that this perhaps could serve as a motivation for some of you who are not confident enough. You think you're going to run into a lot of hurdles when you try to restore these things. You might be afraid that it's beyond your technical capabilities. Well, what I've got to tell you is sometimes you get lucky. And don't think of one project as the be-all and end-all. Maybe you're going to have to do 2 or 3 before you get one to work. It doesn't matter. The point is, try and get these things cheap. And if they don't work, it's not a major loss, right? You don't mortgage your house for this. So if you're looking for motivation, if you want to see how this thing turned out like it is now from where it was, stick around and enjoy the video. And I hope it motivates you to do the same or try to do the same. If you try hard enough, if you try often enough, you'll get it right. Believe me, I did. But before I carry on, I want to thank the sponsor of the video, PCBWay. You'll find them at PCBWay.com. And they're the guys I go to for all my PCBs. They've got some amazing prices on prototype PCBs for you. And what I especially like about them is that it's so easy to get this thing done. You can upload a Gerber, go and select the number of units you want, choose the color you desire, and it'll give you an immediate quote as to what this thing is going to cost you. And with the pricing starting at $5, it's really great value for money. But I think this year I'm going to be doing quite a bit more than just PCBs. And for that, I'll probably be visiting their 3D printing services again, because I am definitely going to be looking at some slightly more exotic 3D prints with materials that I cannot print on my own. The other thing that I find interesting is some of the CNC machining, because sometimes I need parts for the radios that I can't create with the normal materials. So this might come in really handy. But regardless of what it is you're looking for, just look at the list of stuff they do. Whatever you need, I'm sure you'll find something that will satisfy your requirements. Yes, you are indeed seeing another Nordmende portable on my workbench, and this thing is here because of a mistake I made during the Christmas season. I made the mistake of mentioning that a little portable that I was restoring was for a friend of mine, and the result was that some family members looked at this and said, what about us? So it sort of started a local mini Me Too movement, and someone actually had the audacity of suggesting that I give them this one. Now that's not going to happen. This is one of my favorite little portables. It's a Nordmende Transita Deluxe, which I restored on the channel. It's a wooden case. It works incredibly well. I really love this little guy. One of my favorites at the moment. So in order to restore peace within the family, I promised I would get them an alternative, also Nordmende. I guaranteed them that the quality would be exceptional. And this is why this guy is sitting over here right now. It is a Nordmende Transita Automatic, a little bit older than my favorite one over there, but incredibly well built. It's got a leather body, black leather, and the condition is really, really nice. The reason I got this radio is because of its cosmetic condition. I have no idea if it works. I know that these radios pick up very well, but I wanted to get one that had a perfect body and no brain. Sorry, I couldn't resist. I wasn't too worried about the workings because I'm pretty confident that I can get one of these radios working. That statement borders on arrogance, but I don't mean to be arrogant. I just know that these radios aren't that difficult to get working if they aren't. And as I said, I'm not sure if this one is or not, but I'm going to just show you the top and then I'm going to take it out of the enclosure. I'm going to connect power to the battery clips underneath and see what it is we're facing, because I have no idea. Just like the other one, it's got an on-off switch over here, and I don't feel a pull switch. The other one's got a pull switch to switch on the dial lamp. It's got the tone, and it does have a pull function. So you have music or speech. It just changes the amount of bass that you'll get on your sound. It has an FM tuner, and that seems to be working quite well. It seems to have the dial cord in place, and this is a little bit messed up. This is the shortwave or AM tuning, but something's broken in here. We'll have to see what that is. We've got our FM switch, shortwave. This brings in the external tape. So it's got a phono input at the side, medium wave, long wave, and it's got AFC for FM. On the other one, the AFC function also works on the AM bands. It broadens or narrows the band. Now, what do we have here? We've got FM from 88 to 104, which is pretty good. This is not really shortwave, it's just the 49 meter bands, and the other one is exactly the same as that. So the shortwave has been, they selected part of the shortwave to make available, never mind. Medium wave, about 500 and something to 1600, that's fine. Long wave, 150 to, not the full band, it goes to about 270, 280 kilohertz. But again, that's good enough. And in terms of cosmetic condition, it is quite nice. There are a few little scuffs on here. Part of the black plate coloring is gone there. I don't know how I'm going to recover that. A few scratches on that end as well. The knobs, everything is covered in a coating of tar from a smoker's home, and it smells like, it really smells bad. I put it in my workshop and left it here overnight, and the next morning it smelled like someone had smoked a pack of cigarettes in here. So I'm going to have to clean all that up. The antenna is in perfect condition, which is great. That's usually one of the issues we have here. And I think this is as simple as the other ones. You just remove these 4 screws, remove the knobs from the top, and the whole thing should come out. Now, what do we have underneath here? We've got that socket for the automobile connection. You could connect these to a car radio adapter. So you'd get the sound coming through your car speakers. It would use the car battery. It would use the car antenna. This is very common with these radios that I've been restoring from that era. We've got our battery compartment. Don't know how that is. Ah. Well, it doesn't look like we've had any leakage. We've got foam that's gone, but that's pretty normal. I see a bit of rust on there, but I don't see any leakage, which is always a good thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to waste more time. I'm going to remove this from the enclosure, which is going to have to be very well cleaned up to get rid of the tar smell, the nicotine smell, and we'll be able to look on the inside and see what we're facing. I'm going to be able to then just power it up by connecting my bench supply to the battery clips, because I'm not sure what polarity this socket is here. You see, what we've got here is we've got a headphone socket, we've got a DC supply socket, which says 7.5, but I think this is negative center. And if you put a positive center one, which is what most of the wall warts come in, you'll blow this up. It's got an antenna socket here. That's for an external antenna. And then, of course, you've got your DIN socket for tape in or phono in and tape out. So that should be pretty good. Now, again, as I mentioned, the leather is in good condition. It needs some polishing, but nothing seems to be torn. There's a little bit of a ding there, but I think I can fix that. I want this thing to end up looking pretty much perfect, or as perfect as a, what is this, 50-year-old radio can be. Okay, let me get it out. All right, that was pretty easy. All it took was removing 4 screws from the bottom, those 4 screws that we saw here. Now, what you're seeing here has actually been cleaned already, because what I did was I wanted to get rid of this smell of tar. So I started cleaning things as I took them apart. I just couldn't leave it like this any longer. There was a little bit of rust on there, so I painted some anti-rust on there. I've replaced the dry foams on there with that cloth tape. And so this thing has been properly cleaned with dishwasher soap and a brush, and yeah, it's cleaned up. This thing came off the top and it's also been cleaned. A lot of the smell was actually sort of embedded into this into the leather. So I dismantled everything and really cleaned it with an old toothbrush and some dishwasher soap again, and then just sprayed it down with some water, let it dry, and it came out beautifully. The handle was removed so I can clean it properly, but after that I just put on some shoe polish, black shoe polish on all the leather, and gave it a shine, like a shoe shine. And this thing is absolutely perfect, and the smell is a lot better. So here we are. I did remove, at the time, the Nordmende logo from there. All you need to do is you need to bend out these little wires on there. You bend them out on the inside and you pull this out. I gave this a bit of a polish as well. So that's perfect. That's been cleaned. Those are the 4 screws. The handle has been polished as well. This handle, by the way, is the right color. This is not black. And I found some more pictures on the web that show this. The ones I saw on the black radios, these are sort of brown, which is a bit of a strange combination, but that's the way it is. So I'm going to put this aside because I want to get to that thing. I want to switch it on and see if we've got anything at all. And this, folks, is what we're facing. This is the radio, and it's, as usual, very busy. A lot of stuff went into this. There's our tuning, which this one's the FM tuning, and it is turning, so the dial strings are intact. That thing there is the AM tuning, and it's turning, so again the dial strings are intact. That's great news. Now I did notice that this uses those germanium transistors. There are a few here. There. AF, what is it, AF125s or something. I'll show you the schematic in a minute. I do have spares for that, so if I do need to change it, I can do that. I'm just checking the bit of dial cord over here, which is that moving around? Yeah, that's moving around. Oh, it's supposed to be like that, I guess. The only thing that I notice here that we will probably have to change are the electrolytics. There's one there. There aren't that many, and I'm hoping when I switch it on, this thing's working. So there's another one there. There's a bigger one there. That's the power supply section. We've got the power supply. We've got, actually, this is not the power supply. This is the audio output stage with an output transformer, as usual. It's got the 2 transistors here, the push-pull pair. There's another interstage transformer. These radios did use those, probably why they gave such great sound. You can see the plug down here for the car section, the car module. I'm just having a look to see if there's anything unusual here. This is very, very common, very similar to the other radios that I've worked on. This one's perhaps a little bit older. This, I believe, is from 62, 63, if I'm not mistaken. So it's my age. This board is actually sort of angled that way, and there's an electrolytic over here in a plastic tubing. There is a dial lamp over here. I'm not sure if that's working or not. It's the same dial lamp as the one I replaced on the other one. If it's burnt out, I'll just put a LED in there. As I said, we will be looking at the schematic, but I do want to see if this thing's working. And over here, there's a switch here that I couldn't figure out. See, I saw this switch over here. This is definitely a switch. And I was trying to figure out which of these buttons at the top activates it, and none of them do. And then I followed the plunger all the way to the bottom. And it's actually this plunger here that goes in that little tube down there. You see that? There's a hole at the bottom of the radio. And when you push this up, it activates the switch at the top. Now, what this was, is in the car module, the car unit, when you've plugged this into, when you seated this onto the car unit, a plunger or a little protrusion would come in and push this up and effectively activate this switch, and that would then change a lot of internals to the car unit, which is pretty good. Because the other one we saw had a button at the top that said auto. It actually had a button up here that you selected when you wanted to use it in the car mode. This activated that automatically. Pretty clever. Okay, now I'm going to connect this to the power socket, and there is a power lead over here. You've got your battery connector, and this thing plugs in there. So when you remove the bottom, it just unplugs, and we've got very, very convenient points here to connect the battery to. And of course, well, what I mean to do is to connect the bench power supply to. And it is 5 batteries, so it's 7.5 volts. So let's get the supply ready, the bench supply, switch it on and see what we get. So I'm setting the bench power supply to 7.5 volts. I'm going to put a limit of 100 milliamps, just in case. I'm going to switch it on over there. Well, we've got some noise. It's drawing 20 milliamps. What the hell did it do now? Let's put the antenna up. I've got FM on. Ah, it's picking up. Really distorted.
Informações em ópera do castelo.
Ah. Just seeing, oh, I've got to the end now. Oh, okay, it's working, but it's very, very distorted. Let's try long wave. That'll be tuning on this one, which is loose for some reason. This thing is failing. It's sort of... This shouldn't make any difference. This is just a pulley. Medium wave. Whoa. Oh, I've got to put that off. It is excruciating. It is working, but there's a lot of distortion on here. That audio on FM should be crystal clear with this antenna here. Not so much on the AM bands, but this thing should be clear, and it's very, very distorted. And I'm not too surprised. I mean, we've got quite a few electrolytic caps down here that are 60 years old, 61 years old, and I've done nothing to them yet. So I'm hoping, and I might get lucky on this, I'm hoping that it is just a capacitor job, which is sort of a bit of a repeat of one of the ones that I did recently. To do that, I'm going to remove the speaker. The easiest way to get access to the back of the boards is to actually remove these screws here that hold up the speaker. The speaker comes out and you've got access to those boards. Usually you don't need to remove the boards at all. You can work on them from behind, which is very convenient. Now, I'll just take this out and we'll see what we're facing. Always a good idea to hold this. This foam is just falling off, but that's to be expected. This thing seems to be stuck in here. Yeah, it's just sort of gummied on. It'll come off now. I do have wires connecting the speaker. To be expected, I've got the 2 speaker wires here, and I've got a ground to there as well. So I'm going to just desolder these speaker wires and that one and show you the back of the board. It starts looking very manageable. So here we are. We can get to the back of all the components on that board, which we will see here. There's not much to do there capacitor-wise. There are a couple of capacitors, electrolytics. I'm more concerned with the power supply ones, and those I believe will be on this board over there. I can see electrolytics on there. There's a big one. It's probably the main one. That one over there. A couple more, I think, down here. So before I do anything else, I'm just going to replace those capacitors. They're 60 years old. They deserve a break and replacement. I didn't even need to remove the speaker. It just is lying comfortably here. There is enough wire. If I don't have to, I don't do it. So let me replace that and see if we have solved our distortion issue. If that is the case, then this is a really easy one to solve. I'm just trying to check something here. There's no dial lamp switch. I'm trying to find out how the dial lamp comes on. I don't think it came on. In fact, let me see. I don't want to get the polarities wrong here, because you will blow it. You can see the dial light in there. That dial light, I think, is blown out. All right, not too bad. So before doing anything else, I'm just recapping this thing, the electrolytics, and then I'll come back and switch it on again and see where we are. I'm praying that we'll have solved the issue. I know it doesn't make for that interesting a video, but sometimes simple is good. Well, that was easy. Here's the damage from the recapping. Exactly 7 capacitors. The others are all film caps, so these were the only ones replaced, and I can see some of them are looking a little bit grotty. You don't really see much too obvious unless you look very closely. I'm not even going to measure them. Put that aside. I want to test this and show you the result. And I'm also going to use the DC socket. I'm going to feed this 7.5 volts through here. But in this case, the inside is negative, the outside is positive, because this is the way this socket is wired. You've got to be very, very careful. If you do this wrong, you'll burn something out. Okay, I've got the antenna up. I've got this on FM. I've got the supply on. Listen to this. It's obviously very scratchy. Just one thing, I've got these knobs temporarily because they're easier to put on than the ones that came with us. Listen to that.
Olha, começamos a adaptação do livro do Marcelo, e esse livro polissêmico, ele abre a porta para o entendimento de personagens.
É muito curioso, faz lembrar a Cristina Bensalbins que
Tears for Fears, daqui a pouco Stereophonics e também
amazing.
Passagem para
AFC works very well.
Young Dury e o The Electric Light Orchestra. Break the Man, Tears for
Em podcast, Renascença, informação para ti.
This thing is picking up amazingly well, and all it took were those 7 capacitors. I did absolutely nothing else on here. All I did is I removed the capacitors sort of one at a time, and finally when I got to some of these small ones, I think it was the ones that the coupling between stages, amplification stages, it suddenly came to life. And then I replaced the rest, and this is what we have. Let's see what we get on the AM bands. Now, I don't expect anything too dramatic because it is sort of middle of the day, but I'm going to put the mini whip on and I'm going to put it to the external antenna socket, and I'll just connect it to ground over here. So let's try long wave. That's about what I expected, one station, medium wave. This is from the Canary Islands, so it's picking up very well. This is the local AM band, AM station. And that's it, folks. This thing is working beautifully. I literally replaced 7 caps. And I've got to tell you, very, very often, that is all it takes to prevent something like this from going into the trash. This is the, well, this is the good thing and the sad thing about these radios. They don't really need much quite often. Now, I was expecting problems with some of the transistors. These are germaniums, so, you know, if they go off, they can have all sorts of problems. But the idea is if you get a radio like this, find a set of replacement transistors before you start the work. They can be found. I mean, it takes a little bit of searching. I was lucky. Somebody sent me a whole bag of these things when they finished working on electronics. But you can find them. And if you have a set of transistors and you know how to replace capacitors, a radio like this is not difficult. You can see there's a lot of wire going around here, but replacing these caps was really easy because you've got access to the back of the board. You've got access to the front. I didn't remove any of the boards. I sort of loosened that one, but then I ended up just putting it back because it didn't need to come out. Once the speaker comes out of the front, you've got more than enough space to work on this thing. And I am so chuffed. I am so chuffed. Now I want to remove the top and see what I can do about this tuning thing that's over here. It's loose. I have to sort out the pots. I believe there's a switch on this which is not working. The on-off switch has a switch for the dial lamp. I think it's stuck. I may have to remove that. Other than that, it needs cleaning. But I'm going to remove this and see what I find underneath there. But I'm really over the hurdle. The most important part is getting this thing working, and it's working really, really well. All right, a little bit more progress. Let me tell you what I've done. She is looking a lot better, and a few mysteries have been uncovered here as well. Now, all this took was very little expense and a lot of time. In other words, a lot of TLC. So as a restorer, you need a few tools, some components, and patience required to give this thing TLC. I think that's the main ingredient to restoring these radios. So let me tell you what I did. I took the top cover off, this one here, and it required removing 2 screws on here, which I couldn't see. I was wondering why this thing wasn't coming out. I thought maybe the antenna was holding it in, but there were 2 screws underneath there. As soon as those came off, the top came off, and that gave me access to parts that I hadn't seen before. Like, for example, the underside of this guy, which actually hides a bit of a mystery. This thing was skewed because there was a part down here held by these 2 nuts that was slightly dropped, so it was slightly loose. And what this is that it actually holds a switch in here, rather unexpected. It holds the switch under this control. When you push this down, it's making a switch, and this switch is for the dial lamp, which actually works. I will show you in a minute. But I was able to take that down. I was able to push this up. This thing straightened. It's now not bending like it was before, and it goes up and down very slightly, but it works. So that is the dial lamp. I cleaned all the pots, and this one especially required a lot of attention. The on-off switch and volume control. I did mention earlier this has a switch. Yes, it does, but it doesn't have a push button one. This is just the on-off, and it's working perfectly. The wiper was dirty, so I had to spray contact cleaner probably half a dozen times, but it's now working perfectly as well. It'll probably, or some of the scratchiness may well come back, but again, that gets worn away with use. All the switches were cleaned, and as you can see, this white has gone yellow, but I'm not going to remove these guys. If you remove these guys from there, they normally stuck in, and the chances of breaking them are very, very high. So I'd rather have some yellow switches than broken ones. And to put this outside in the sun without removing them, to bleach this to white again, it's just not going to be feasible. So I've got yellow buttons on my radio, and they're all uniform, so it doesn't really matter. I can tell that the original color was slightly lighter because you can see the underside, but believe me, that is not an issue. Then I removed the top. And this top is interesting because all it is, it's a diffused sheet of plastic over here. So these 2 screws let you remove it. On the underneath, you've got a sheet of paper, like a cardboard, which is the backing, and that was completely yellowed. So I sprayed it with some white spray paint, very thin layers so that the paper doesn't actually soak and start warping. You've got to be careful with that. The dial pointers are perfect. So once this was dry, I cleaned everything on the underside because there was still some of that nicotine residue or the tar residue. And now it is pristine again. The speaker got itself a new rim, and what this is, it's that foam. You buy it like this. It's used to seal doors. It is perfect for this. That seal has got there's a part that's actually got a self-adhesive part, but I normally cut the other section nice and straight, and it fits beautifully on there, and it works very, very well. It's a good foam. It's not very thick. You don't want it too thick because otherwise it'll protrude. When you try and put the top on, you might scrape it off. The speaker is immaculate, as you can tell, but other than that, there's not much to see on here, except, oh, there is one thing. I had been mystified by a little piece of wire that was on here, that it seemed to have been broken off. I didn't know what it was, and I now do. There was a capacitor between here and the underside of the top cover, which is metal. It's a 47 nanofarad capacitor. One of its legs had broken off and stayed on there, so I removed that and I put a new one on the face plate, as I'll show you in a second. And here is the faceplate. I was able to clean it thoroughly. I did not remove this from the underside because you can actually do quite a bit of damage on here. There's a lot of putty, like a black putty holding it in place. These 3 screws would make it easier, but there is putty down there. These things got stuck back on. Everything was cleaned nicely on here, and I put that capacitor right there. It's between that point and then this will solder to the underside. I will put some insulation sleeving on here. There was a bit and it fell off when I put it on the top there. So this thing was properly cleaned. The chrome was polished, but I had a problem. The problem was this black section here, which had a lot of marks on it and chips and everything else. And I had to make a decision. I could either just paint it all, but then I would have to find a way of putting these markings on, or I could do some touch-ups, literally touch-ups. And what I did is I got a black marker pen, permanent marker, and I literally dotted the parts that had missed paint. The idea is that you don't paint it like this. You literally dot it. And I learned this from a friend of mine who's a professional classic art restorer. She says that when you put dots on a thing, your eye sort of blends everything in. When you wipe it, you see the marks. And it actually worked quite well. If you look at this part over here, this thing was all just scraped white. And with the dots, you can still see that it was done, but it doesn't look so fake. And this will never look perfect. I mean, it doesn't look perfect. And my intention is not to make it look perfect, or make it look new, rather. The intention is to make it look good. And I think that I've achieved that. So I'm ready to put this thing back on there. And I want to show you the schematic because you are going to be surprised just how little was required of the actual electronics on this thing. Very, very little. Oh, by the way, I did clean the knobs. These knobs had like a yellow hue to them, and I thought it was like a brass paint or something that had come off. It wasn't. It was results of nicotine and tar. So when I brushed these off with an old toothbrush, they came out fantastically. There's a couple of very small dents on here. I can't do anything about that, but I brushed it, polished the top, and they're looking great, and they're ready to go back in. So I'm going to put the top on, put the knobs on. As you saw earlier, I had to remove the antenna, so I'll put that in again. I'll show you the schematic, and then we'll be able to see what this thing looks like complete and give it a final test. It just wouldn't be one of my videos if I didn't show you some schematics. I think you got used to that by now. I found the service manual for the one I believe to be this model, the KL49M, 49 meters, meaning that the shortwave band is only 49 meters, not the entire shortwave band. And I've got to stress, before you get into any restoration, you've got to find a service manual, because otherwise you're just guessing. I mean, if it's your grandfather's radio and there's no way of finding it, I understand that. But this certainly makes life a hell of a lot easier. This thing's got a full schematic, and although it looks a little bit complicated, it's actually fairly straightforward. And due to the initial wake up of the radio by changing those capacitors, I didn't really need to go into much of this. I didn't even need to really look at the schematic. In fact, the only thing I did is I marked off the capacitors that I replaced. And those you can see here. This was it. What was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 8 is that little 47 nanofarad that connects the front panel frame to the chassis of the radio. The one that someone had ripped off when they took the top off. Just shows this thing has been out of the cabinet. But really, this is it. And because the radio is performing so well, and I will show you that because I did some tests last night, I didn't feel it would be at all worthwhile to do any kind of alignment. I checked some of the positions on the dial. They are perfectly suitable, perfectly okay. And therefore, I decided not to tempt fate, get into this again. So basically, I took a radio that I bought off the internet that had a good body and I replaced, 8 capacitors. That is all. The rest was cleaning, trying to get the nicotine smell out of this and doing some polishing and that sort of thing. But other than that, that's it. This radio has been saved from the graveyard by 8 capacitors and a lot of isopropyl alcohol and a lot of TLC, a lot of it. This schematic also gives you the circuit board layouts with all the components, which makes it very, very easy to check. You can check the schematic, and once you found a component there, you know more or less which part of the board it's on. You can go back down here and check which board it's on, and it'll identify it very, very well, and it did. But as I said, I didn't really need it. It also has a very, very detailed instruction set on how to align it if you do need to. Now you can just take this thing and put it into an OCR site. They do it online for free, which means you get character recognition, and then you can do translation. It's very straightforward. There's nothing unusual about this. I've done this dozens of times on the other radios, so I'm not going to repeat it. And of course, everything to do with the car unit doesn't interest me because I don't have one, and I don't know anybody who does. So this entire section here is for that car module, the one that's in the car. It's the bracket into which the radio fits, and that would obviously come from the supplier and be connected to your loudspeakers, your antenna, your car battery, and so on and so forth. But otherwise, here she is. So let's go back to the radio. I'll show you the final result, and I'll show you some tests that I did last night. Let's start with FM. Can't play that.
Tenho uma opinião sobre aquilo que eu estou fazendo. Então, eu não sei se aquilo é bom ou ruim. Eu não sei se poderia ser melhor.
It's picking up stuff that I normally don't pick up at all. This is one of the strong stations that I get, and I always use this as a reference.
Para verificar isso, basta compararmos a terceira sinfonia com a quarta, ou a oitava com a nona, logo se notando as diferenças fulcrais que há na atitude de cada uma.
You can clearly see the difference.
Quase que a oposição interna ao Partido Socialista, porque é que essa gente também não se chegou à frente?
And this is my go-to station as well, which is reached by the limit of 104 here. It's on 101.6. But let me tell you what I get from this. The FM is very rich, and you've got this button here which you pull up for speech. I don't know if you can discern the difference.
Não estavam à espera que Paulo Cafofo se antecipasse.
You see, it sort of cuts down the mid-range and the bass, and it gives you more treble, so it makes speech clearer. But then on both levels, you've got a tone control. Whether it's on speech or music, I call it speech and music, you've still got the tone control.
Tirou uma pedra ao charco, disse chega, vamos agora a eleições, mas nas minhas condições.
And that's it. That's our FM. Now, to show you the AM, I'm going to show you a video that I recorded last night because I needed to do it at night to pick up long wave, medium wave, and short wave. So let me show you that.
Agriculture all affected the climate. But this House bill was about more than targets and strategies. It is a covenant with the natural world and with future generations.
ولكن يقدر يعاتبوك علاش ما درتينيش؟ لا ما يقدروش يعاتبوني لان انا ماشي موثق، انا ماشي مسؤول عن التوثيق الحي المعمري. انا اديب، انا كاتب، كتبت في علاقاتي مع اناس معينين مع فضاء معين.
Mejorando la vez anterior.
Muy buenas.
Qué ganas tenía de verte de...
Crecer y los jugadores también tienen que crecer. Puedo decirle a los jugadores que no hayan salido. Claro. Por eso digo que
And that, my friends, is it. 8 capacitors and a beautiful lady brought back to life. It does help that the leather didn't have any tears on it, that the glass was not broken, the knobs were not cracked or broken. It shows a little bit of its age because there are the yellow buttons, which would normally be pearly white. There is still a slight lean-to on this thing. When you push it down, the dial light goes on, and I did check it at night, forgot to show you, but it does work. That works perfectly. So this one is still leaning slightly, but it's not as loose as it used to be. Everything is just the way I like it. And the whole point of this video is to show you that, in fact, it's what became the point when I found that there wasn't much wrong with it. The point was to show you that with a few of these guys replaced, as long as you've got a sturdy and a complete radio, a radio that hasn't been ripped apart or broken or cracked or torn, you can save this thing from the rubbish bin by spending, what would that be? Probably, I don't know, a couple of euros on components, but a lot of time. And believe me, I don't begrudge the time spent on here. I really enjoy it. It helps that it's a hobby. If it was a job, I'd be broke. With the number of hours that I spend on here, it would not be financially feasible. But the whole point is that you enjoy doing this and that you get an enormous satisfaction knowing that this thing is going to someone who's going to use it and it's not going to end up in a landfill. So folks, I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope this has encouraged you to do the same. You might end up with 1 or 2 of these that you can't bring back to life. But, get them cheap. Be patient when you search for these things on auction sites and on Craigslist and wherever you buy your stuff. And don't expect everyone to work out like this, but sometimes you get lucky, and I just got lucky with this one, and I hope you get lucky with many of your projects, and I do hope you've enjoyed that, and if you have, click like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. And if you want to support the channel directly, you can do so on Patreon and PayPal. Links are in the description below. So once again, thanks for watching, bye for now, and stay safe.